Buongiorno e grazie di essere con noi all'evento Green Transition and Circular Economy, Walking as Multitudes. Vi ricordiamo di mantenere le distanze di sicurezza, di indossare sempre la mascherina e di silenziare i vostri telefoni cellulari. Grazie.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm very pleased to be here moderating this event, Green Transition and Circular Economy Walking as Multitudes. My name is Natascha Lusenti, and this is a conference on the future of Europe, which means we try to get to know each other better between European citizens and institutions. We try to confront, to share ideas. We try to imagine the future we want for our home, which is the European Union. We especially ask from young people to please participate and write questions and share your ideas, your opinion, also after you will have listened to all the relators, and I hope we will have some ideas to write down perhaps, and we can send them to Brussels. Who knows? We need the help and the energy and intelligence of everyone. So before starting, I want to also thank BASF for having me here with you. And we have a very short video that introduces us to the conference. We will talk quite a bit, I think, this morning about fear and what this makes to our brain, the climate change issue, which is very hard for us to confront. And we know this is a very particular moment for all of us. There is a war, and so we are suddenly really put in front of the problem of the energy issue. So we must think about it with an urgent necessity that perhaps we didn't feel before. So this conference is really particularly interesting, and to give you welcome from BASF, I call on stage, please, Lorenzo Bottinelli, which is CEO and Vice President of BASF Italy.
Buongiorno a tutti, good morning everybody. Thanks Natascha for the introduction. And welcome to the participants here on the site, and also to the ones that are connected on streaming in this today meeting. As you said, Natascha, we were questioning ourselves in BASF about the necessity and the urgency and the priority of discussing about future of Europe today. We are concerned and confronted with the brutal facts of the current reality. What we are seeing in the television, of course, it's really unbelievable and also unprecedented in the last few years. And we were thinking about that, and we believe that really to talk about this region, to talk about working together, this Conference of Europe is an unprecedented possibility for the citizens to participate to the agenda of the region. It's still a priority. We saw in the video just before, Sir Attenborough says we don't have to focus on the short-term issues only, but also to always keep an eye about the future. And this is really what is about today, the discussion. We have the pleasure to have 6 really distinguished panelists that can give value to this discussion. We hope to grab ideas and also feelings and emotion. Some of them have also a very important eye about beauty and understanding the beauty and the value behind the things. And I think that the discussion will be extremely interesting. I want to say that BASF is not the protagonist today. We are just hosting, and we are happy to host such an event. The protagonist is Europe is the future. We will focus about circular economy that is about to see a gold mine in what until yesterday we called waste. Entering this morning in the room, I saw there were some letters describing the pictures, the very nice pictures here. And the first one was abandoned. The first word with A, starting with A, the last with W was waste. And this is really what we need to don't do anymore. We don't need to abandon, but we need to see value out of that. And this is about what we will discuss today. So I will close my introduction here. I really thank everybody for participating, and you, Natascha, for helping us to have a lively discussion with the panelists. Have a nice meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorenzo. Yes, like you said, we cannot take, make, and waste anymore. We have to learn also to think in a different way. We must, of course, continue to take and make, but not waste. Reuse and understand that resources are not endless, and that really our future is the real issue here. I said these conferences are born and are thought as a way of putting people together, so citizens and institutions. So the first thing we have now is European Deputy, Silvia Sardone, connected from Brussels. I think we have her. She should be connected.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Can I speak in Italian or I have to speak in English?
It's better, for us it's better English.
Because no one told me that I have to speak in English.
I can help you if you need some...
Okay, it's the same, just to know. Okay. Thank you for this invitation, and you know that probably I have not the same opinion of mainstream opinion. I'm a mother, and it's obviously that the environmental point of view is important for me. But I think that here at the European Parliament, there are a lot of things wrong. In the objective of climate neutrality by 2050 and to the reducing emission by more than 30% by 2030 are extremely ambitious. Unfortunately, Brussels continues to work in an ideological manner without seriously economic social impact. I think that maybe here people live in another world. where now there is the war, and we have a lot of problem, and I think that the environmental are not the first, from day one. We have given our willingness to participate practically in the conference on the future of Europe, to bring our contribution of ideas and proposals in order to give life to a constructive and concrete debate in the interest of citizens. Unfortunately, we note that this initiative is proving to be a missed opportunity, with discuss light years away from the real needs of the people. How much European taxpayers' money has been spent on a conference that is not bringing results? What is needed is an immediate change of course, so that constructive and practical proposal can emerge. Nothing important has come out of this conference. Fewer words, more action. The last thing Europe needs today is yet another declaration of intentions that leads nowhere. So I conclude my speech. We are in a historical moment in which realism, realpolitik, must be more important than idealism. We cannot afford at this time green taxes, green constraints, impossible conditions for companies to meet. The risk of social unrest and unemployment are around the corner. Be careful, because we have already seen an episode with the yellow vest. We must look to the future by focusing on an attention to the environment that is consistent with the development of Italy and our continent. I do not think that the solution is a happy degrowth that was talking about a month ago. Thanks again to BASF for the kind invitation and for this interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvia Sardone. Oh, she's gone already. I just wanted to say that we will keep in our mind what she expressed to us. I kind of know her point of view and her party's point of view. Actually, today we will talk about real things. We will talk about things that not only projects that are going to be real, but also projects that we already can talk about as a past, and is regarding the city of Bologna and is regarding this territory. And personally, I believe that get together to talk, and after 2 years of pandemic, also being able to see each other, even though you wear a mask, I don't because I'm lucky, but anyway, and get together and talk and share ideas. Perhaps we don't solve the world today or in the next conference of Europe, but it's the only way we can talk about what we want to do, and also share our fears, our desires, and try to understand how we can cope with this, which is a very big issue. And I will tell you also later, our brains, talking from a point of view of evolution, is not really set to understand climate change, because the first thing that you want to do is, like Silvia Sardone said, this is not real, this is far away, let's talk about the now. Let's talk about what happens in the present. And so it's very hard for us to imagine that this big thing will happen. Like Lorenzo said before, the war is something almost unbelievable for us. We were not expecting it. We were not expecting it the way it's happening. And this was wrong from us, because in a way, we could have foreseen that. So in a way, we must try to understand what's happening, talking about climate change. And so we need minds put together. We need also bodies put together so that we can look at each other and talk to each other. So now I will call all the how do you say relators? I don't remember. panelists, thank you very much, that will be here with me today. Please have a seat from left to the right. This is my seat, so please don't sit on my seat. So the first is Andrea Quartieri, co-founder of the innovative startup Packtin. I also think you're the youngest one, Andrea, so the more connected with the students here and also the ones that are seeing and looking at us on streaming. And then Luca Lambertini, director of Alma Climate Institute on Climate Change, University of Bologna, which, if I may, I want to remember, is the oldest one in the world, the University of Bologna.
The Western world.
The Western world, yes. And Saori Dubourg, member of the executive board of BASF. At least I'm not the only woman, thank you for being here. And Luca Locatelli, environmental photographer and filmmaker. He also won a very important prize. We will talk about it. And last but not least, Niccolò Casas, welcome. Architect and designer, part also of the resilient communities at the Italian Pavilion 17th Biennale of Architecture in Venice. So everyone is set.
Thanks.
So welcome, everybody. I will start from the oldest Western university. So I will start with Luca Lambertini, director of Alma Climate Institute on Climate Change. So let's start from the sharp critic, I would say. So this conference will not be useful because we will not talk about real things and people need other things. Because you will talk exactly about something that changed the daily life, and so also meaning what you pay for energy, which is a kind of an, up-to-date issue, and also your role in the planet, but also in the very small part of Bologna where you live in. And this is something that already has been done with Horizon 2020.
It is being done.
It has been done, and so it's very important to talk about it because it gives us a confidence that we can actually do something.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. Well, the idea is that this center is a transdisciplinary hub, gathering people from 28 departments of the University of Bologna. It is immaterial, except for human resources, so ourselves, okay? And our task is to put things together and people together, okay, to create research consortia for the EU programs from H2020 onwards, okay? And things are being done as we speak. Actually, we have projects inside the perimeter of the metropolitan city of Bologna. One example for all is a project called Gecko, Green Energy Community. The program about green energy communities is not specific to this town. It is widespread all across Europe. It will be powered by the Next Generation EU and Horizon Europe funds, okay? It has been implemented in Bologna. The project is close to completion. Close to completion means a few months, okay, from now. It is working on the ground in two large districts, Pilastro and Rovere, okay? And most of our task was to talk to people from the institutional level to the district councils, okay? In order to take the view that you can turn a large metropolitan town to green sustainability for real in 36 months, okay? They got the message. They reacted very well. There were economic incentives. There was a demonstration of the technology by ourselves. I am an economist, so not exactly myself, but the colleagues at Marconi, the Department of Electrical and Electronical Engineering in Bologna, about what to do. And people, firms, local authorities, associations, and so on and so forth, reacted in real time, okay? The thing is working in this town, involving the industrial district and the very large residential district, okay? So we are not talking about legends or something we would like to see in a very distant future. It is already there.
Oh, Luca, also when you talk about the residential area, not necessarily a rich one or like an average one.
No, intentionally we did not select, say, the top-notch part of Bologna, but a very large residential area, like many others across Europe, okay, and across the world. I would like to add something. What we have to do is three things. We need transdisciplinary research, which means that the problem is multifaceted. It is multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, okay, but the research must be transdisciplinary. I have to talk to engineers, physicists, sociologists, anyone, okay, medical doctors, because the problem is not one. It's very many at once, okay? So nobody is able to tackle this class of issues alone. Nobody, I mean, no category of ourselves, no bunch of economists or engineers can solve any single aspect alone, okay? We need to talk the same language and write together down the projects, the results, the impacts, okay? I would like to stress one very important aspect of the European program, in starting from at least the Green New Deal, okay? You have to write clearly what you expect to be the outcome on the ground. It is called impact, okay? The impact part of the project is fundamental. It must work, okay? It is not something made up for us to publish something very cool in a scientific journal, okay? This is not the point. We have to produce a green growth path lasting forever, okay? This means GDP, technological innovation, employment, trade, and fairness. Fairness, infragenerational and intergenerational, okay? We have to think, decide, and act for the very many that still do not live and cannot vote, okay? And this is a very, very tough job. We can't be naive. We can't hope for anyone else to do that, okay? We have to abide by the Paris Agreement. This is a very serious story. And when it comes to thinking about Brussels and the European Union, okay, everybody in the European Union should thank Frau von der Leyen and the Commission, okay, because they are doing a fantastic job in this direction, fantastic, okay? We are connected with Una Europa, with ERA Bioenergy, anyone in Europe, okay, that can contribute. And Brussels has a very clear-cut view of the implications in the social, along the social dimension, the economic dimension, the industrial dimension, and the geopolitical implications of all of this, okay? Just look at the telly, okay? We need to go green for very many good reasons. Each one of these would be sufficient to motivate everyone, okay? So look at Brussels, because we need more Europe, more now than ever, okay? We need to be cohesive, decided, to operate quickly in a very smart way, and the people, the institutions, and the industrial fabric of this continent will respond. This is my personal experience, not only my own, but that of very many thousands of colleagues across Europe, and also outside Europe, because we are working with institutions that are not, technically speaking, Europeans, so not inside the European Union. For instance, the ECMWF in Reading, which is European but still located, it should come to Bologna at some point. It was supposed to be in Bologna in April 2020, and then it was, the procedure got stuck, okay? Israel, Africa, Canada, anyone, okay? So be confident and look at Brussels. and listen carefully to the messages delivered by the Commission.
You were telling me, Luca, yesterday that you are getting a lot of interest from different European cities after the Gecko project.
Yeah, because the idea is that in the new bunch of funds that we are about to use across Europe, it's a very relevant piece of Horizon Europe. There are similar projects which aim at create small cities. Okay, I mean, all of us across Europe, we have to work out projects for, say, 100 cities, big cities, okay, capital towns, for instance, and we are to go green, okay, to become smart cities in the very near future. Okay, we are developing a number of connections in order to create the consortia needed for this to happen. Okay, this is a matter of a few months from now. The projects will come out and say they will be exactly in the same vein as the smaller projects like Gecko that were developed and implemented in a very recent past, because the project was financed 3 years ago. Okay, so things are going on and expanding. Okay, this will involve not only the towns like Bologna, but like Vienna, Amsterdam, London, Paris, name one. Okay, and the matter is to put cities together, cities, universities, research centers, the public authorities everywhere, including Brussels. Okay, the dimension of a project like that would be the dimension of the funds given to a single group working on a single project will be something like 50 million plus. Okay, over at least 42 months. But this is only the amount needed for the project to put things in motion. All the rest will come by private incentives, institutional incentives, industrial incentives. Okay, which means that the rest of the money will be spent by the subjects living in those areas, because they have understood that there is a future, which means increasing GDP, increasing welfare, increasing the possibility of citizens to become prosumers and learn that everything may work independently of carbon. Okay, this is not something that will happen next week. Okay, but it may happen
next winter.
Let's say
no more oil, no more gas.
In view of the completion of the Agenda 2030, so
no, I'm talking about, of course,
2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then having in mind the deadline of 2050, because that is the deadline written in the Paris Agreement.
But perhaps this very bad war is accelerating everything. For the first time, we are understanding that the energy issue is very serious. Now we have a real menace. Now our brain can understand what is going on, and perhaps everything will accelerate. What do you think?
That's right. I think so. I also think that if the public opinion understand what's going on, unfortunately, okay, this will also accelerate what I was mentioning before, the need of intergenerational fairness. Okay, this means also security over the long run. Security is itself a matter of transdisciplinary thinking, which includes energy. It includes a lot of other things, but say freedom and democracy are not in the list of a free lunch. Okay, we have to invest. We have to invest as much as possible, as effectively as possible, as soon as possible. But it works. The message is it can be done. We should do it. So let's do it, okay? I may testify myself that what we do produces a very positive impact on people, common people out there of any kind that receives a good message, understand the explanation, because the explanation is put in unmistakable terms, okay? It can be spread over a very, very large amount of the public opinion across Europe.
Talking about people, Luca, can I ask you quickly to explain to us about the Gecko project? You said it works, it worked, and people were convinced, and now they're prosumers, most of them, all of them, and they're happy to be that.
Also the firms. In industrial district.
Yes, exactly. Industry and residential. Was it hard to convince them?
No.
What was the story?
No. Well, there are a few phases. One phase is to talk to the institutions, okay? You have to talk to the city hall, you have to talk to the district councils, and then pass on the information to those really interested in practical terms, okay? So owners and managers of the firms in the industrial district, and the people across the two districts, okay? Because you have to talk to people. Explaining what? Explaining that that we could provide an app in order for them to check in real time whether the amount of energy produced by photovoltaic was exceeding the requirement of their buildings, okay? And they could just deliver the excess energy into the grid and get money at a regulated price. And they could see it on the smartphone, okay? Common people. Any one of us could do that, okay? At a micro level.
So are you saying that in the end, money is the key story?
Well, money is the key story if we take it right. In order to take it right, we have to think that we invest for what? I may give up the idea of buying any hi-fi equipment for myself for 10 years because my house is full of hi-fi equipment, okay? This is not the point. The point is, can we think of an investment that is green, it is long-lasting, and it is also profitable? This is, by the way, a very long-standing idea. It is the Porter hypothesis. Okay, Michael Porter said, okay, now we usually think it is very tempting to think that any regulation of any market, even if it's not a matter of environmental impact, okay, will disturb the performance of firms with very many consequences. Now, think of a situation in which the regulator regulates the environmental impact, okay? The objective of firms should be to get around the regulation in order to nullify the impact of the regulation itself. So the optimal environmental regulation should be very short-lived, should become useless or not needed anymore as quickly as possible, if, or provided that, those reacting to the regulation find a profitable way out, giving a win-win solution, so that the firms quickly discover that there is a way out of it because they get more profits by investing in the right way, okay? And welfare goes up. Welfare goes up because consumers are happy. The regulator observes an increase in welfare because the impact goes down, okay? And the firms are happy because they increase profits and they also increase employment or invest in some other directions, okay? This would be a long story. It would need a debate for itself, okay? But this is something of which we have the proof and reaches very, very rarely the general public. But when I speak about, say, corporate social responsibility and the Porter hypothesis to big firms in Bologna, may I name someone?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so all the members of Impronta Etica, think of Hera, Granarolo, Unipol, okay, all the way down to small firms adhering to a CSR statute. Okay, when I speak of these things to the managers and the from the CEO down to anyone, okay, they react always in the same way, namely positive, okay, because they know what we're talking about. This should also made public domain. Okay, it should be made public domain because the reception of these kind of messages by the general public would be a very positive thing. It would help a lot, of course, because we need consensus. We also need political consensus on these matters. Okay, so the information about these issues should be as wide and as consistent and precise as possible.
That's why you're here. Thank you, Luca Lambertini. Thank you. And now I want to talk with Niccolò Casas. I said he's an architect and designer, part of the Resilient Communities, the Italian pavilion. We're talking about the Biennale of Architecture in Venice. And Niccolò, first of all, if you agree, I would like you to begin with a very short reflection on how, since we listened the academic point of view, which cooperated with the institutions, can you tell us a little bit how the academic point of view on climate change changed itself a lot in the very last period? Also thanks to a very young people, which is which is Greta Thunberg.
That's correct. First of all, I would like just to start by talking really briefly about multidisciplinarity, since we were talking about the importance of multidisciplinarity. I very often define myself a multidisciplinary expert before an architect, because I think that creative people, designer, artists, architects today needs to cross boundaries and create links between disciplines and fields. But in order to have the opportunity to exactly to cross boundaries, I think that it's really important to have occasion. And that's why I think that like the conference today, or meeting, or occasion for sharing ideas with people of other disciplines, artists and so on, are so very welcome. So I thanks BASF for organizing this event today and for having me. And in terms of occasion, exactly the Biennale, when I was invited last year, actually 3 years ago, I was invited because then for the pandemic
Postponed.
it was exactly. I remember that, and I get back to your question, I remember that when I was invited, at the time I was reading Greta Thunberg book, Our House is on Fire. And there was this sentence that stayed with me for a long time when she answered criticism for not going to school. And she answered, why should I be studying for a future that may be no more when no one is doing anything to save that future? And I started thinking how an architect, a designer, a creative, an artist can think about architecture, design, art, and so on for a future that may be no more. So I started questioning about the idea of the importance of sustainability, and the idea of radical sustainability that for me is about the approach to a project. You know, you may think about an architectural project or an architectural initiative. So to me, this is the main difference. An architectural project should be sustainable, while an architectural initiative can be radical sustainable in the sense that it's not only the object the building, the house, the chair that must be sustainable, but it can expand the sustainability outside the object itself. That means that it can activate circular economy or educational proposal or just communicational messages that are really, really important. And so, yeah, to get back to your question concerning the academic field, I think that it changed a lot during the last year because as architect and designer, we during the first years of 2000, actually starting in the late 90s, we were completely in love, as we are still, with new technologies, digital technologies, digital design tools, and then digital fabrication tools. But we forgot about the importance of sustainability. It was something that was, again, something that it was needed in an object, but it was not our priority in terms of communication, okay? And everything changed in a radical way when Greta Thunberg started, talking and communicating and raising awareness on the problem that we knew, but we changed the approach. Now they are again a priority, but in a radical way. Again, it's not only the object that must be sustainable, but it's the expanded object that must be sustainable. It must be part of a circular economy, of a circular process.
In a way, we could say, to be hopeful and to be optimistic, because we need that in order to keep on going, that Greta Thunberg was like the unpredictable thing that changed everything, that made possible for the issue to be at the center of the stage. And so perhaps we can hope that something unpredictable will make things a little better. But we have to do our parts. And we were talking about partnerships between academic and institutions. In your case, is a partnership between architects, designers, scientists, and you two bring today to us a real project. It's called Partly for the Oceans, and it's a collaboration that puts together multidisciplinary approach once again. And also, if I may, I know it's not your core business, but talking about the impact on the environment, we often talk and think also because of what Greta Thunberg said, don't fly anymore, less planes and everything. But the building construction, the building of our homes and the places where we live our days is highly impacting on the environmental. So architecture has really a role in this.
Yeah, fashion and architecture are probably the worst industry concerning the impact in terms of sustainability. And I had the pleasure to work in both fields.
The responsibility.
And exactly. And but let's talk for a moment about architecture. So again, we need occasion to, as I was saying before, to exchange ideas and to get and to start partnership and to reinvent what we know and what we give for granted. So when I was invited to the Biennale, I had the opportunity to start talking with Partly for the Oceans. Partly for the Ocean is an environmental organization, is a global network that tries to find solutions to the problem of the oceans. And it's based on 30 countries all around the world. It's growing really quickly. Probably in May, they're gonna start and open the Italian Partly for the Ocean, and Cyril Guch, that is the creator, the CEO of Partly, is gonna, I don't know if I can say, but is gonna meet the Pope. So that, again, in terms of communication, this is really important. And And what they do, okay, they do a lot of things, but for what concern the project that I presented at the Biennale, they invented this premium material, which is ocean plastic, which is not only a recycled plastic, but is an upcycled plastic. The difference is that plastic are intercepted before reaching the ocean, or collected from the ocean, river, from a small island, from rivers, from beaches, etc. Mostly are plastic bottles or fishing nets. And they are collected and they create this wonderful material that can be employed in the industry. Again, I don't know if I can mention big brands, but like Adidas now is probably employing one third of their products ocean plastic. So it's an incredible partnership, and it's something that is again happening now. We're not talking about the future, but this material can also be transformed in a pellet that can be applied within digital fabrication tool. In the case of our collaboration, 3D printing. That means that we can produce on demand, on occasion, reducing waste. And what we wanted to show is the possibility to employ this material at the architectural scale. So we designed these architectural constructs that it's called plasticity, that is at 3.6 meters high sort of column that combines an organic pattern with a linear pattern. So two lexicons that in my view were the metaphor of the human lexicon and the natural lexicon existing together. And it's like 200 kilos of plastic that were collected from the oceans, and they're basically transformed in an architectural art construct. And so it emerged from plastic waste, it transformed plastic waste into an avant-garde architectural piece, but at the same time, again, it raised awareness on the problem of the oceans and on the problem of our world in general. And I think that it's really important to teach, to show how we can reinvent sustainability by combining it with innovation, with digital tools. And our idea now, and we are doing the first experiment, the first trials, is to translate this knowledge that we acquired during the experiment for the Biennale in a house, a plastic house, actually not a real house, it's going to be a shelter for developing countries. But it's really interesting because, again, thanks to 3D printing, we can produce on demand, reducing waste, but engage with local communities that can again, collect the plastic from local areas. We can teach young kids to be to be careful, because toxic material, plastic material, can become a source. So it's not something that we have to keep away, but actually can become an integral part of our economy. So the idea is to show how, again, architecture can be not limited to its physical form, but become, again, an instigator, an activator of a circular economy. Because, again, economy is really important. We cannot be only experimental. That's the role of the academia. But then we have to get in contact with industry, with makers, you know, and make things real.
Niccolò, I'm sorry. I think you had a video. You wanted to show us something of the things.
I think it was on the background.
Okay, I didn't see it. So okay, no good. Because I was wondering if people could see what you were talking about. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I only want to ask you a very quick last thing, because we talked yesterday about your. It's not a predicament, actually. I think you have real database. To talk about it, that you see talking about fashion, and so a very impact in talking about environment industry. It has a very bad impact. And talking about very young people, you said to me, perhaps 20% of fashion of the very next future will not be real anymore, will be in the digital world. And this is something that can help us when we talk about pollution, perhaps not CO2, but for something else.
Yeah, that's true. It's something that is happening now, really now, like in the last 6 months, last year, probably. Yeah, actually, fashion and I hope architecture as well are going through that revolution that music went through during the 90s, becoming digital. But music was easier because the physical part of music was basically just the support. Music is digital in a way, is abstract, while fashion is losing, and architecture hopefully are losing their physical body for the first time. And what is impressive is, yes, they are talking about something between 20 and 30% of fashion that now is actually bought because of social networks. And the idea, it's not the idea, the process is actually to virtualize the dresses so that you can buy or design, if you want to design your own clothes, and only virtually, and show it and wear it only in a digital way. Actually, this is really important because you could take out the 30% of fashion production in terms of physicality. And for our generation, it's something that is really strange, to wear a digital dress. But young people really almost don't see the difference between the ownership in terms of digital items or physical items, because they in their view, the digital world and the physical world coexist already.
Because it's a way of living anyway. Perhaps when we think about a change of economy, in that sense, we think about sharing economy, so sharing products, so not owning them anymore. But this that you are saying is very interesting because it puts us in a real different dimension. So it's not the real world. It's a real world, but it's not. We cannot touch it, but we can still see it. So as far as fashion is concerned, it's fine because you can look at it.
Yeah, actually, the best way to produce one thing is not to produce it. So
yeah.
Thank
you very much. Thank you, Niccolò. And now, Luca Locatelli, I told you he's a very famous, important environmental photographer and filmmaker. You won the World Press Photo 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
2 times, 2018, 2020. Yeah.
And your job is really important because you talk about stories. So you try to put on the ground in a very beautiful and aesthetic way. So it has something to do with perhaps what Italian can do. Among the best things that we can do, we have a strong relationship with beauty, with arts, with aesthetics. And you try to transform something that, again, our brain does not understand, does not want to understand, because, of course, we fear that we might not have perhaps a future, or that we will lose the world as we know it, and we don't know what expects us, and this is painful, and this also sometimes we are loaded with a sense of guilt, and so it's really hard to confront it, but we must. And through, again, a well-told story, like you did with the people living and working in the area of Bologna where Gecko was applied, once again, telling a story in the right way can help people to feel less, perhaps, the fear and feel that they can do something.
Yeah, I'm basically a bridge between, science and knowledge of how to front the climate crisis and common people that will unfortunately not understand so well scientific reports, and we need actually to translate on compelling and sexy images that can communicate and can be spreaded worldwide through the power of social medias, exhibition, books, and everything possible to fill the gap between the innovation which is going on with common people. So the innovation has to be sustained with the culture. And if we don't have a common culture of how we are making the future, I believe that will not be, digested by common people and will not be sustained. So we'll be skeptical about it.
So for sure, I know you have shows.
I don't
you have
have
the thing over there on your table, I think.
Oh, sorry.
On your right, yes.
Yeah. So I'm talking through images. So let's see pictures. This picture, for example, is part of a long-term project about circular economy I'm doing, and it's a greenhouse living in symbiosis with a volcano in Iceland, and it's showing how we are trying to build a better relations between us humans, technology, and nature. And circular economy is the main investigation of my work right now. And next, I will show you a video which is bringing with me around the world through this investigation. So, as I said before, what I'm trying to do is actually trying to stimulate the debate and open a conversation about the state of the environment and try to help scientists to communicate with common people. And speaking of symbiosis, this is the Copenhagen, which is a zero-emission incinerator in Copenhagen, in Denmark. And it claims to be the world's cleanest waste-to-energy plant, which replaced an old coal plant. And this waste-to-energy power station functions also as a ski and hiking slope and hosts educational events on sustainability. It is a kind of new industrial icon of our time, which is attracting visitors from around the world. And here we are in front of a very futuristic vertical farm, which is nearby New York, and produce fresh vegetables inside a rescue and repurposed steel mill warehouse, which was abandoned. And the main goal is to reduce the food production and distribution chain, because it is estimated that almost 30% of the food production in the USA is wasted, which is really a lot. And here we are seeing an aerial view of the largest boneyard in the world, which is handling almost nearly 3,000 aircraft in Tucson, Arizona. And the process of optimizing the life cycle of such machines is a circular economy leading example in the heavy industry sector. As we know, there's no one single solution in the fight against climate change, but we certainly need to recover some good attitudes that we have lost from the past. Prato, for example, the recycled district, textile district of Prato, regenerates high-quality, sustainable wool from textile waste. And it has been doing this for decades, and it is the future that resembles the past. In a first publication of my circular economy project with National Geographic magazine, we have dedicated to Prato a triple international cover. Look at the present to unleash the future. This is actually what I'm trying to do with my work. And here we are seeing the cooling tower of a former nuclear power plant in Germany that has been transformed into an amusement ride, a sort of time machine showing us the common future we would like to have. We don't have so much time. I can bring you so many other images and examples, but as we have seen in this short tour through my work, I'm really committed since 15 years to spreading the culture of change and translating the best solutions for tackling the climate crisis into visual, compelling images that can be widespread through social medias, exhibition, and much more. We have a moral duty to hand over to our children's children a planet that can be still habitable by humans. And I believe that we need to unleash cultural action and reconnecting that broken link called hope, which is fundamental for imagining the future of humanity in this planet.
Thank you. Luca, if I may say something?
Of course.
Just because we are talking about what we need to change, our way of looking at things or of thinking of things. You say, I listen also to your beautiful TEDx intervention, so I think you said the same thing. You talk about us human and nature, but we are nature.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the worst things that happen to human species is when, and we do it all the time, it's probably really inside us. We always have an us and them. So we always have some like kind of enemy, or at least a different creature. So us and Russians and Ukrainians, yeah. Or Europeans and Chinese, or human beings and animals, or humans and nature, but we are nature. Perhaps if we start the Anthropocene, now I don't know how you say this in English, but putting the human being at the center is exactly that, and it was not such a good idea. So yeah. Perhaps we should start, we should stop talking about us and nature. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a compromise, you know. It's a compromise on communication.
Yeah, of course it is, of course. No, of course,
it will be much better to understand that we are nature, but we have found high, you know, we have Illuminism in the past, so we are not able yet, yeah. I think, to consider us as part of the circle. So we need to actually point on us as the leading, you know,
creature. Yeah, no, it's true.
creatures that can change things. And so I totally agree with you. We cannot survive basically without the photosynthesis, you know. We are nothing without nature.
Exactly.
Exactly. But we need to understand in this moment that it's us that can change things. And it's humanity that can really be involved on creating a progress and try not to disappear from this planet, because this planet doesn't need us, you know.
I know.
Another error I feel like it's very common.
Save the planet.
Is save the planet, you know.
Save yourself.
It's actually maybe the planet's trying to get rid of us, you know, and but we are in this struggle to try to survive on this planet.
Yeah.
That's but yeah, it's a good point for sure.
I just wanted to add a small element to the reflection we're making here. Now, Saori Dubourg, you are a member of the BASF board, and with you I would like to widen the image once a little more, if it's possible. And I will start with a small provocation, because among the bad guys, let's say this, when we talk about pollution or climate change or environmental issues, the chemistry industry is part of it. And but what you're saying as BASF is, in a way, we're not part of the problem, we're part of the solution. And I think this, in order to be this, you need a big shift. You need a big change of mind and of producing or of issues you work on. And I'm interested in hearing from you how you're working on this.
Yeah, thanks a lot for also this provoking question. And I have to say I get this a lot because the world is full of perceptions. I just have to say one thing here. My team, the people I know, the employees, we are not waking up in the morning saying, yeah, let's destroy the world.
Of course.
I don't know any of my colleagues who have such a mindset. Yeah? In fact, a lot of colleagues have families, they have children, and we have exactly this conversation inside our company as well. And it's our employees who, while we speak, it's not me as a board member, it's the entire company, it's the conversation we have in our conglomerate. How can we contribute with solutions? Let me give you a little bit of a thought how we see the things, because industry is really about scale. And for me, this whole conversation, I thought it was very interesting to see the political view first, and I really have an emotion about this, which I would like to share with you. Because, as Lorenzo pointed out in the beginning, you know, we are in an unprecedented time of a paradigm shift. And quite frankly, we as Europeans, we had 70 years of peace because we had that foundation of collaboration, and this time is now over. And I observe, you know, we are very good in complaining about the EU. We constantly do, by the way, in Germany as well. We have a lot of dialogue, what could have been better. But the question is, I mean, this has been earned by blood and tears and sweats over history, that we are here now and we have a common kind of ground that we have developed. Are we now staying complaining, or do we go forward, and that's the same for BASF, and work on solutions? And I'm a big believer that we have to go for solutions. That's why I'm thankful for your pictures. Now, what are the two paradigm shifts we see? And I will bend this into circularity, and why I believe there's a lot of positive chances, but we have to be ready to create them. So there are two paradigm shifts that we see right now. If you ask me, we are at the end of the first S-curve since globalization, since the 90s. Industry has grown via globalization. We have gone out in the world, and it was all about a volume growth, volume-related growth, be it in fashion, in architecture, in the industry. But what we are seeing right now, there is this kind of change, the pattern change. Yeah? This globalization curve is coming now to an end. There's block building, there's power games going on. It's kind of the pattern shift that we see. And the question is, what comes as a next wave? And the next S-curve is a very different one. Because besides the block building, the globalization struggle that we have, and who is the biggest on earth, the second layer that will not go away is about climate change. And we can complain about it or not, But the next S-curve is about a resource-efficient economy, and this is no longer a volume game. Yeah, and it might sound weird that I say this as a company, because it needs a deep rethinking of a lot of business models. So the next wave of growth is about value growth. And this is something very different. And we are looking at this. We have looked at the Green Deal. And by the way, Europe didn't have a strategy since many, many years. And I'm glad we have one now. Finally, we have a vision. Be it good or bad, I think it's the right one, because I can tell you a good strategy is not to focus on what is changing, but to focus on what you said also, working on solutions of things that will remain relevant in 20 years from now. And besides the Ukraine war and Russia and all the conflicts we have, climate change will not go away. We have seen first catastrophes. So now what we experience as industry, the whole financial market is changing. Last year we had more than 230 billion of climate-related damage. I have been in the agricultural area responsible for that business. Globally, we have lost 40% of arable land. Last year alone, there were trillions of assets, financial assets, invested in sustainable solutions. So there is a clear pattern shift in the investor landscape, no longer accepting that industry, that we all as consumers continue on that route. And we are looking for a less but better solution future. The future needs a better design. So this is why we started on multiple layers in BASF to question, so how can we contribute to this? And circularity is one option out of many, and we see 6 different archetypes for circularity. For example, renewables, the whole using of materials that are reproducible. Or we saw some of the concept sharing. I don't know who talked, you talked about sharing, right? The whole sharing economy, leasing is a third archetype that is coming strongly. It's a shared economy, it's ecosystems, that's the future. And this is not dreamy, this is real while we speak, because we are working with exactly those players in the industry. You talked about one company that is already using plastic and reusing it for boots and shoes and all kinds of things. So this is exactly these innovative solutions, understanding that waste could be a resource of the future and not just wasted. But there's also things like recycling. Yeah? There's all kinds of recycling technologies. The EU has given some frameworks around this, and we are really thankful for that. There's more to come. So if you ask me, I'm very positive. Maybe you might think it's not real, but what I see currently is our customers are moving big time. We have found 140 new innovation markets that are developing, which are, for example, new energy systems, home insulations coming up, materials, innovative materials, hydrogen economy, e-mobility. Still, we have to solve a lot of issues in that supply chain, that's for sure. Then if you think about sustainable transportation, farm to fork, just to name a few, new protein solutions. You saw vertical farming, climate-related resistant solutions, shortening all kinds of supply chains. You have markets that are coming up, and the good news, and this is why I would like to encourage you, let's not get stuck in complaints. It's not an easy transformation, but these markets, when we looked at all the 140 markets, they have an average growth rate between 3 up to 35%. For example, carbon farming in the agricultural solution, 35. That's more than what we were used to as an average GDP growth in Europe. So my question is, to all of us, we really see right now a fundamental shift of pattern. We know it's time of war, and that's why we discussed, should we have such a conference? But it's also time to re-innovate our economy and maybe rethink some of the dependencies we have. And the only way to get out of these constant dependencies, be it on the energy level, where we have to solve, and I will talk about this in a minute, is to innovate into the new age of a resource-efficient economy, where you showed some of the very nice first examples. And I'm a strong believer we might be against it in the beginning, but this will come because the financial market is changing. And on the energy, here I'm with the politician, quite frankly. We have to be realistic. This is a deep crisis. 50% of Europe's demand is still based on gas. And the rest, even if we innovate according to the EU 100% renewables, we will not be able to replace it until 2050. That's why I can only applaud Italy. I read that you at least were able to diversify. Maybe we have partially to democratize also the energy resources in Europe as far as possible. But the future is about diversification, and we have to think beyond. And standstill was never a good answer. So I'm a fan of, the future can only be created if you do it and if you go for it and not if you complain about it.
Well, about the opportunity of having this conference, because there is a war and perhaps there is something more important to think about or talk about, I want to thank you for having it, because one of the bad things that war brings with it is the fact that you cannot talk about anything else, because it seems like there's an emergency. We have to talk about that. We have to take care, of course, of the people suffering there. So you cannot talk about animal rights, environmental, climate change, or whatever, because there's a bigger issue. So I think it's like courageous and responsible, I think, and right, in my humble opinion, to have a conference like that, because in a way, this emergency, this issue is bigger than the war that we hope will end sooner or later. Let's hope sooner. Climate change is going on. It's happening. It will not end. We can try to cope with it, but it's going on. I mean, it's not something that we can say, okay, let's sit down and let's agree on something and it will stop, like we can do with war. This we cannot do with climate change.
Absolutely. We had that conversation. Is it the right time to have such a conference? Exactly as you said, because I have to admit, I'm also responsible for the European region in BASF. I was very occupied, and it was heartwarming to see that our crisis team in Ukraine by now is split in half. We have all the men being in the battle and the females helping in the crisis mode. It's a disaster, a human disaster. But my question is, do we let these events triggered by a few people, undermine our whole necessity as humanity to transform? And I think these pictures that you showed are part of the solution. Yeah, we are in a very critical state, especially as Europe. And what I would like to give Europe is encouragement. In Italy, you have the sense for beauty, for design. And there is a German designer, Dieter Rams, you may know him as a designer very well. He was, for me, very inspiring. He said, we are at the end of, we cannot afford anymore to be thoughtless in terms of consumption, production, but also in the way we produce. The age of thoughtlessness is over. We can't afford it anymore, because the future is about how do we deal with all of this, because it's going at the expense of the next generation. And we owe the next generation not only that we, of course, tackle the current crisis as good as we can, they also have a right for future.
Can I ask you one last thing? Because we started from values applied, in this case, on industry, on your industry, on your company. And you were talking about a big shift. Can you name some of the values that perhaps were not there before and now they're introducing themselves or already on the table? Or something that is still needs to change but is going to change?
You mean for us as a company?
Yes, as a company. Yeah.
Well, we have had a very intense dialogue on values in our company, and I think in 2017-18, sustainability was before a topic of a few departments in BASF, I would call it, But now it has changed, and it started in 2017 when we asked 9,000 experts around the world, what do you see? Because when you react, there's one thing for sure: you are too late. So we love to think proactively. And so these experts basically indicated that the world is in a shifting mode, that in 2021 the first innovation fields would be at the peak. And so we decided that sustainability would become part of our purpose, which is a bit unbelievable because as a chemical company would never think of sustainability in the same row. But what people tend to forget, if you know how to design molecules, you can also decompose them. And we thought, okay, then if we can put molecules together, why not, doing the opposite and looking what else we can do with it? And this kind of what became a paradigm shift. So we are right now building wind parks together with partners. It's a very fundamental shift. We have a lot of projects going on across 45,000 applications where we look with customers, as I said, industry is about large scale. How can we contribute with more bio-related mass, with products that are, for example, in terms of plastic, how can they be biodegradable? We have projects on this. We have projects in Nigeria where we collect plastic waste from the ocean. So these are things, and they are not triggered by just a few people. It's the entire team. Even here in Italy, we are very famous for hydrogen projects and other projects we have in agricultural solutions. And many materials that we produce. So we are very happy to interact with customers there. So that's the positive part. If you ask me what we still need to shift and change, I think also we have to diversify more. That's my personal opinion. We have seen it. And what happens to Germany happens also to BASF. There's a high dependency on gas. And we are constantly in these dilemmas, and it's not easy. The moment when you do, for example, agriculture, my personal dilemma always was, do I nutrition a few more children in the emerging market, or do I really work on biodiversity on the field, for example, in Europe, knowing that Europe is the corn, center for the world. So these dilemmas are the ones where we constantly have to question, and we are getting better. Are we perfect? I don't think so. We are working on it, every day, and that's why we invited, for example, human rights specialists to advise us to make better decisions going forward, because we have to carry that responsibility every day, and there is sometimes no perfect solution for everything.
You cooperate with human rights experts.
Yes, we do. We have an external advisory board, and they challenge us. Yes, that's the way to get to better decision making, and that's why I'm saying nobody is perfect. Every single consumer is not perfect. Of course.
That's what I was talking about when I talk about the sense of guilt. Everyone has, because we all consume and we all have our footprint on Earth is too heavy. So perhaps as a company, the company one is heavier than mine or yours, but still, everyone contributes to the problem. So everyone should contribute to the solution at least. Now, our last panelist, last but not least, Andrea Quartieri. You mentioned agriculture and food, and if there is something that we cannot stop doing, breathing is one thing, and eating is another thing. And producing food, distributing food, not only in the single apartment or house, but also as industry level, we waste a lot of things. What you did with your startup is think about wasting less. So back to the beginning point, stop taking, making, and wasting, and start taking, making, and retaking in a way. Andrea.
Yeah, exactly. As Lorenzo also said before, we must become able to see waste as a new resource, as a value. Because, just talking about food, that is my sector. For what concerns European Union, we waste around 16-17% of the starting natural resources just during the transformation phase. So in the current paradigm of linear economy, we know from the beginning that no more than 60-70% of the starting raw materials will arrive to the final consumer. And I mean, for us, this is completely unacceptable, both for ethical and mainly economical reasons. Our project started from this problem, and we, as also other projects and startups, thought about possible solutions. So yeah, our project aims to kind of revolutionize the agri-food chain because we want to create a strong network between producers and industries of transformation, so to be able to recover what are now considered byproducts. Just think about, I don't know, tomato peels or fruit peels from juice producers. These are fractions that are still so rich of valuable compounds such as fibers, antioxidants, vitamins, but now they are not valorized. The best end that they can achieve is the valorization as energy. So we thought about higher valorization that we could make with it, and yeah, we built up this process of we call it triple upcycling, because we start from the byproducts, and first of all we obtain from that new functional flours. So just orange peel flour, tomato flour, and this is already something that can be utilized in the food industry as a baking ingredient and so on. Then we also developed an extraction process based on green chemistry that allow us to separate these valuable compounds through green extraction, and so we have these new raw materials for industry such as fibers, phenolics, and so on. And we also use those to create edible coatings that can extend the shelf life of fresh food. So with our R&D department, we worked on coatings that could extend the shelf life of tomatoes, of oranges. And so, yeah, we are trying to do the best possible outputs from something that now is just wasted. So yeah, it is fundamental to apply this new paradigm of circular economy, not only because it is important to reduce the waste, but I mean, I'm not an expert in geopolitics, but of course, utilizing in the most efficient way all the natural resources that we already grow and harvest, it can be also fundamental to achieve a sort of more autonomy for what concerns raw materials at Italian and European level, of course. So yeah, something that I strongly see as a need for the future is a support to the innovation of startups and bottom-up initiatives. Because unluckily, this is something that always bothered me, why I didn't make a digital startup. Because for a manufacturing project, of course, the intensity of capital that you need is quite high also for an early stage. So what we see is that for projects like this, it will be strongly needed a cooperation between institution and privates. So they could join forces to support early stage projects that probably, I mean, of course, will not be profitable in the short term because they look strategically to something that will be profitable at industrial and scaled up scale. So yeah, we are not the only ones for sure. We are working Million Foods, but there are many initiatives also for what concern buildings, for what concern textiles. We are building a kind of network of these different startups, and we know each other and we try to collaborate. And yeah, we see that many of these projects are achieving results. So we are strongly motivated to go on. Because yeah, as Saori said, we don't need to complain. I mean, we still do, but we must strongly work for solutions.
Andrea, I know we have some questions from a couple of students that are here with us, and since you are the younger one on stage, so you are the most linked to them because you stopped studying not so many years ago compared to us. I want to ask you quickly if you can tell us. Tell the students that are here and also listening on streaming, what is needed in order, for example, to do your job?
Well, of course, you need a lot of competence and skills, for me in a scientific way, but in any field that you must approach. But yeah, I think that the first thing is a good knowledge of yourself. I mean, first of all, you must know your priorities. If you are more oriented to career, wealth, or if you want to leave a footprint in the society, this is the first thing you must look at before trying to see which kind of university or which kind of job you want to apply for. So first know yourself, and then it will be easier to decide and to find your way.
This is very interesting. I agree with you. So I think Lucia and Francesco want to make a question.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good morning to everyone. First of all, we'd like to thank our Professor Biagioppi for the support and also Bertacchini for this great opportunity. For the future of Europe event, we'd like to propose our idea connected to the circular economy trend, which consists in a monetary deposit whenever a person buys a can or a bottle. We'll try to explain it better. When we were in Germany, like in Berlin, Bremen, and other German places, we've noticed that they introduced the DRS, the deposit return system, which in Germany is called Pfand system.
How does it work? When you buy bottles or cans at the supermarket, you pay an additional to the price of the product. And this addition is called deposit. And if you bring it the bottles and the cans where they are empty to specific automatic machines or at the supermarket, the deposit you paid at the beginning will be refunded. And we think that this is opportunity for avoid the bottles around the streets or to keep clean the environment.
Yes, whenever you bring the empty bottle or can in a supermarket, you are refunded by 10, 25 cents according if the material is recycled or reused. So then we question, why should we do that? Because for sure, as we noticed in the German scenario, we found out that's a good example to move towards the circular economy. So we improve in reusing, recycling, and reducing. And also it helps in keeping clean the environment and to reach the UN SDG number 11, 12, which are about sustainable consumption and production.
So we think that the European Union should support the recovery of empty bottles by adopting a directive that can push towards multiple markets the returnable economy. So we have 2 questions for Professor Lambertini, but for also the panelists. And what do you think about our idea? And
their idea, the idea they
DRS system, deposit return system. And do you really think we as European countries are doing our best to fight against climate change, to improve our planet?
To save the planet.
To save the planet, improve the planet.
Can I tell you something? You're very young, but I grew up in Switzerland, for example, and the deposit-based policy was there, I think in Italy too, years ago.
In the 80s.
Years ago, and then we forgot about it. But it's a very good idea to bring it back, absolutely, because money works. So if you tell the people that if they bring it back, they will have something back in exchange, usually they listen to you. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. This is what economic incentives are for.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But on these grounds specifically, I think that that would be the initial step. In the long run, it should become natural.
Yeah.
Okay? So you have to trigger the mechanism.
It's the gentle
it's different.
nudge, I think
yes.
they call it in
Yes.
the La spinta gentile.
We need some nudging.
Exactly.
Okay? But say, one thing is to nudge firms to invest trillions of euros over the last 20, over the next 20 years, okay? Another thing is to nudge an enormous population to do the right thing with small moves. That's a small move, okay? You can do that on your own. So nudging with a bit of money in the early stages.
And
is
then
fine,
nudge yourself.
Okay? And yes.
with your thinking.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are we doing enough as European people?
Well,
European Union?
Well,
we're not perfect.
As I said before, we need more European Union now than we ever did before, okay? But the European Union is there. The European community was there long before, okay? So the public opinion must tune itself say, to take the order of magnitude seriously, okay? European Union is big, okay? The global GDP of the European Union after Brexit is as big as China. Before Brexit, it was a lot bigger, okay? So we are not weak. We are not undefended. We are not anything they say usually, okay? Think about it. Because if 350 million European people think about it seriously, the history of Europe will change once and for all, okay? And very quickly. It is a matter of retuning the public opinion.
Exactly. Talking about retuning, I don't know if we have some questions from the audience that's following us on streaming. If yes, I will see them here on the screen. In the meantime, very quickly, because we don't have that much time left, I ask each one of you a keyword, your keyword, for the future of Europe. Niccolò, I'm looking at you.
Okay, perfect.
Let's start from you.
Yeah, I think that coexistence is probably a key word. Timothy Morton, one philosopher that I truly love, that talks a lot about ecology, says that true ecology is about radical coexistence. That means us coexisting with the toxic things that we produce. So learning how to coexist. But in a general way, coexistence is also a disciplinary coexistence, is a cultural coexistence, and it's also generational coexistence. I think that from seeing the others as a possible solution, and so learning how to coexist with others, I think it's probably the key for a new sustainable world.
Thank you, Niccolò. Since you said that, I will read the first question because in a way it's related to your keyword. A cultural revolution seems to be a must to develop a concrete circular economy at social level. Who should activate and guide it? Saori, you want to answer?
Well, yes, maybe some ideas here. I think we have seen here multiple stakeholders on the stage, and I think everyone has a contribution here, be it the innovation, which I think is one of the key words, but also...
So it's your keyword? So
innovation towards a resource-efficient economy will be key, concentrating on solutions rather than problems. And for this, maybe just some hint on the social level. What is changing now, and this is what I would respond here, on the investor side, for the first time, it's not only environmental cost that will come now on the stage of financial markets, because in the 60s, there was the invention of risk adjustment in terms of return. So risk-adjusted return, that was the beginning of venture capital and all the new capital markets. Now, all of a sudden, the impact on the social cohesion and the environmental impact is for the first time measured by the financial industry. And in 3 years from now, because I'm working with some of the financial institutions, IFRS, SASB, and others, they are really working towards a social dimension of impact created by companies, for example, in future. And that's, for me, one of the big paradigm shifts. We saw 2 weeks ago the US SEC, the stock market authorities, asking for the first time for environmental reporting of companies. We have a little bit of a too complex system in Europe, I have to admit, with the taxonomy. That will be not easy to implement. Anyway, but the financial community will look at the social level of inequality. And that is what is up now for the capital markets to come. It will take 3 years, but this cultural revolution has to
It's already happening, you
It's
say.
happening already on the financial world, and I think what is needed is young talents like we just heard. Please come up with the ideas. It's a brilliant ideas. I do the bottle collection every week in Germany, and it works. But this is a good example what Europe needs. We have to take the best ideas of each and every society in Europe and just scale it. Yeah, like you showed the examples, we have to scale them.
Luca Locatelli, your keyword for the future of Europe.
Culture.
Culture.
Yes, I think Europe has the greatest occasion because for some tragic reason as well, the planet are aligning and is offering us, a brilliant future. We have to get rid of mentality of being too much US dependent, and or other kind of situation. We are Europe, and I think we have the power of changing things.
You're proud of it.
As an explorer, I can say it's very difficult for me to find great stories outside Europe.
Really? From
Yes.
a journalistical filmmaker point of view?
Yes, it's the epicenter of the revolution is here, and we have to understand that, we have to believe in that, and we have the power of doing that and being the leading example around the world. When I talk with National Geographic, they always are so surprised that we have such an incredible network of start-uppers, scientists, companies, political and government institutions involved on the revolution. They don't have this.
We also have to remember, compared to other countries, that we have done our part as far as pollution is considered. So we must know that perhaps other countries are less, they feel less responsibility because they started polluting yesterday or like the day before. We have a responsibility, so it's correct, it's fair that we also, perhaps take the charge of the cultural revolution that we need.
Of course. But we are advanced on the on the path of changing things because we have done before. So now we
learned something. You say.
Yeah.
But it's nice to hear you're proud of being European. If we have one more question, perhaps we have a few minutes to answer to it. In the meantime, I ask Andrea Quartieri your keyword for the future of Europe.
Yeah, it might sound egoistic, but I say support to innovation. Because, if there is something we are good at, it's at being clever and creative. And we must unleash this potential in finding the solution for what's happening, and we have been very good in causing it. So now we can also work on the solutions.
Can I say something? Sometimes you confess to me that when you don't get the investment you need for your project, I'm talking about the past, you got so frustrated, you were willing to not be pro-Europe anymore, but then it lasts like a couple of days and then you're back being pro-Europe again. Yeah. But it's true that frustration can do a trick like that. So
Yeah, it might happen.
more support. Last question, what can consumer do in order to support circular economy concretely? Perhaps I turn this question to Luca Lambertini, and then I ask you to close with your keyword.
Okay. Good question. Well, it is part of the problem, okay? The demand side of the economy is fundamental. Going green or becoming prosumers may empower the whole system to turn green as quickly as possible, and quicker than it would do if the response on the demand side was not there, okay? The spreading of environmental awareness across large population of consumers, developing a culture in that sense is fundamental, okay? If you punish brown and grant green products and green technologies a premium, that's a key point, because demand decides who is selling and who is not, okay? Of course, any single consumer will not be pivotal, okay? But altogether they will. So the demand side is fundamental, okay? It has always been fundamental, okay?
Be aware, of course.
For selling anything, because if it doesn't sell, it doesn't matter if it's green or not. It doesn't sell, okay? In order to sell, one has to convince people to buy, okay? A good reason to convince people to buy is going green, and transmit a clear-cut, unmistakably clear-cut message in this respect, okay? That greener is better, okay? The greener, the better. Fantastic. Then they will respond. This is what I was mentioning before, okay? You go across examples like this all over Europe, okay? You talk to people, you explain things, they raise questions, okay? But they are interested and they react positively to the extent that in the end, they become prosumers, which is more than green consumers.
So we can answer that being a consumer is a political act. What you buy is a political act.
Yes, actually, we may say that green consumerism may become, at least to some extent, a substitute for regulation.
Yeah,
okay?
Exactly. That's interesting. Your keyword.
It is part of the point. My keyword will be, well, there are many. Innovation has been already mentioned twice. I would like to say green growth, in order to make it clear that degrowth is not the matter. Okay?
Good.
This is not the point.
I agree.
We have to deliver a planet for the next generations, infinitely many generations, better than we have now. Okay, but this includes also at least the same level of welfare with the incorporated technology that we enjoy now. Think of the national health system. Okay.
Yes.
With degrowth, the national health system, as we know it in Europe, would go in rubbles. Okay, because it's extremely costly. So there is no degrowth debate. Okay, it does not exist.
So, some keywords, no, your keywords,
green growth,
coexistence, innovation, support to innovation, culture, and green growth. Then we talked about the investor side, how it's changing, and this can have a role as well, of course. We talked about multidisciplinary, cooperation between private and public, cooperation between academic and institutional, very good propose from the Lucia and Francesco, the two students, deposit-based containers so that we don't waste bottles and cans, and storytelling, and so art and aesthetic. This is the result of this conference, which I'm very glad to have moderated. Thank you for the opportunity. I think this was useful. I hope it was for you too, for the people here, and for the people that are at home and watching on computers. Thank you, Andrea Quartieri, Luca Lambertini, Saori Dubourg, Luca Locatelli, Niccolò Casas. Thank you to BASF, and have a nice day. Goodbye. Thank you.
Desideriamo ringraziarvi per essere stati con noi. Chiediamo ora la vostra gentile attenzione e collaborazione per uscire in sicurezza dall'auditorium. Come vedete dalla slide alle mie spalle, chi è seduto nell'area A può uscire dalla porta corrispondente, chi è seduto nell'area B dall'uscita del proprio lato. Le hostess in sala regolamenteranno il deflusso per evitare assembramenti. Vi invitiamo a mantenere sempre la distanza interpersonale ed indossare la mascherina. Vi ringraziamo per la gentile collaborazione e vi auguriamo un buon proseguimento di giornata.